line of questioning that Senator Murkowski described, and that's with regards to the growing sentiment, I think, across our country of people who are, if you will, anti-vaxxers, people who are avoiding vaccines, and I have been approached during visits to my state by people who have whole books that are written describing why vaccines are bad, why they're made from adulterated sources, and I won't go into all the details, but it's not like just a social media phenomenon. I mean, there are literally books out there that are written to describe why vaccines are bad. And I wonder if it does not make sense for our government to put out a very comprehensive effort to dispel this growing sense of vaccines being bad. And I don't know how you do that, but it would come to mind that you're doing that with regards to tobacco and massive advertising on TV. You could have debates. You could call in these people who write these books and have discussions with them, which are publicized. You could have much more aggressive campaign on social media. I guess the question I'm asking is, should we be doing more than we're doing, and what could we be doing to resolve the debate, the uncertainty that so many Americans have about the wisdom of receiving vaccine? And I'll ask Dr. Collins and the Surgeon General both if you'll respond to that.
Well, I'll start, but the Surgeon General will have a lot to say about this. This has been, of course, an issue for our country, not just in this season of COVID-19, but before that, and particularly one has seen the consequences of that with measles, for instance, which in the year 2000, we declared that the U.S. had succeeded effectively in getting rid of measles, and now last year we had more than 1,000 cases. And people have forgotten that kids die of that disease and continue to die in other parts of the world. I think we have benefited from the success of vaccines so that a generation has sort of lost track of the fact that these are preventing diseases that take lives. I just saw an estimate that if you looked at all of the children born in 2009 and you asked what would have happened if none of these vaccines had been available, 42,000 of them would have died. Imagine that, 42,000 kids dying for preventable conditions because vaccines were not available. Well, they're available now, but if they're not getting used, we're facing that same kind of terrible consequence. And it is heartbreaking, and I must say, frustrating, and sometimes even causes you a little bit of anger and frustration that this kind of misinformation is so readily spread by people who have another agenda. And we have a hard road to go to try to counter that when so many people don't see in their own experience the reason why this is such a life-saving activity. But I'm going on a bit. Surgeon General, please say what we should do about it.
No, thank you, Senator. And I'll very quickly walk through. The Department of Health and Human Services is using a three-tiered approach to improve vaccine confidence through research and evaluation, collaboration and partnerships, communication strategies, and knowledge dissemination. I put out an op-ed earlier this year with the Secretary and with CDC Director Redfield. We're working with platforms like Twitter and Pinterest and Facebook to make sure appropriate and accurate information is displayed prominently when people do a search. CDC developed Vaccinate with Confidence, a strategic framework to strengthen vaccine confidence. We're working with minority medical schools like Morehouse and beyond. But you mentioned vaccine resistance and the anti-vax community. It's important to understand that 90+% of parents out there are actually doing the right thing, and that when you look at the 10% who aren't, most of those 10% aren't in that anti-vax, or I say vaccine-resistant category. They're in the vaccine-hesitant category, and that's who we need to really work on. And we need to work on educating them and engaging them and being compassionate with them and patient with them to answer their questions. And I went out to Washington when they had the measles outbreak last year. And I found that when they had after-hours conversations with parents, they'd come back 2, 3, sometimes 4 times, but most of those parents, when they got their questions answered,
Thank you,
got vaccinated.
Thank you, General. My time is
welcome to the Gilchrist Experience. As you see, we're up to date. That was this morning, the Senate hearing on vaccines, and which is the subject of today. And we've got Curtis Koss, which you know has been into vaccines for 30 years. He has a book out, Vaccines Are Dangerous. We're trying to get him on the Skype now. And we also have Robert Kennedy Jr. on, which we had on the show several months ago.
January.
What was that?
December or January. Yeah.
January. And welcome to the show, gentlemen. How's
And
it going?
thank you.
We're
So
back.
what did you think of that video I sent you guys on?
Oh, man, you know, you should put the link to that video up on the site so that people can sit down and take an hour and 45 minutes and really get an understanding of what's going on and how it's affecting black people, especially our folks in Africa, and who the nefarious individuals are that we're seeing on the television on a regular basis. That's a very deep piece of work.
Did you watch the conference today? I mean,
No, I couldn't. I was in and out of a couple of things, but
well, they were talking about exactly that.
oh, they were talking about Bill Gates.
Yeah? Yes, they were.
They actually talked about Bill Gates.
Yes.
Man, you
Talked
know,
about him in terms of
Him supposedly be behind a bogus claim that he was behind all these bogus drugs out.
right? Because
He
from
was
the,
behind it. Exactly what Kennedy is talking about.
yeah, in terms of Bill Gates literally buying out the World Health Organization,
Right. Right.
and that they have to use all of the vaccines, quote unquote. He's not a doctor. He doesn't know any more about medicine than I do. But people get caught up, and this is how dangerous it is. There's a brand name, somebody's willing to listen to the brand name, right? That's not good enough. The fact that a guy is a businessman doesn't mean he can run a country. The fact that the guy is a billionaire doesn't mean that he can run a pharmaceutical company. What Bill Gates has done, as stated in that piece, he's killed a lot of people in South Africa, in Kenya, in India, with the vaccines. And the Prime Minister of South Africa and Madagascar told them, you can go to hell with your vaccines. They told the World Health Organization that. You can go to hell with your vaccines. We're not your guinea pigs, and you're not bringing it down here. Test that on the Europeans that you got up in Europe, where all the COVID was running wild in the beginning of the year. He said, test it up there. They had so few cases throughout Africa. Don't think you're going to bring that here and use our people as guinea pigs. And even going back to polio. You know, we had the salt vaccine when we were kids. And
But everybody's
polio
fine from that.
back in 55, 56.
We have no problems with polio.
But there were problems with it. There were problems with polio, and it had a serious effect on a number of children. But what
the vaccine.
The vaccine. And what Salk used to develop the vaccine was something from the kidney of a monkey, if I remember correctly. But that essence, they found, causes cancer.
What do we do about this scare that people are under? This fright, this trauma, this COVID pandemic, as we're calling it? But it, as Kennedy said in this piece, it puts a pressure on all of us to search inside for our own paranoia. You know, not wearing a mask, wearing a mask. We can all come up with an argument of why we wear masks. But I relate, I was talking to Curtis about what made me feel comfortable was listening to Cuomo. And he projected just, and we came out of the madness because of this restriction that he put on most people. But most people felt comfort from his listening to that 11 o'clock in the morning sermon. And it all boiled down to love, really. And he gave reference to love and God. And that's what helped me through all that. And that's what everybody has to relate to. This whole 6-month period has been a searching of the soul, a searching of your identity to your fears and your madness. And Kennedy says in his speech that a lot of people were dying from just the isolation. I imagine
too.
being in a nursing home. I know a relative on my floor, people died from panic attacks. Just the idea of being around people, like you said, your pastor was in the hospital, and they're dragging out dead bodies
all
all
around him.
around them. We had to waive it all to get the equipment to go home.
Now, I'm not paranoid about death, because death is the only guarantee of your life. If you come here, you're leaving here. It's just a matter of when and how. That's all
But
it is.
that's you, Grant.
I know, that's me. I said, I am not. I am not. Now,
That's why you have the strength to be who you are. We're talking
your
about the people
immune
that are
system-
weak and don't understand what's going on.
Right,
And
your
we're
immune-
confusing a lot of people.
your immune system is contingent upon stress,
Right.
what
Exactly.
you eat, your mental health. So you can't allow a scenario that you are not in control of
Okay.
to drive you crazy and then take you down in the process.
right.
Most of the people that died, a lot of people died, they tagged it as COVID. It wasn't COVID.
All right.
People died of a lot of things. Hospitals are getting funding from the federal government as a result of the COVID deaths. So all the deaths were not COVID. And we need to understand, remember, they moved the nursing students. They finished them up before their graduation. They said, we need these students, we just certify them, send them out. Well, think about that. They
Unqualified
they
people.
sent them out, not fully qualified. You go into a hospital, and they say they have to put you on a ventilator, they got to intubate you. That process can only be done by certified people. And everybody that was intubated was not intubated, I'm sure, by a person who was certified to do it. Plus, there must be an anesthesiologist there when the intubation is done.
So even within proper, but in an emergency, this is what happens. This is what happens. But the blame, as we heard this morning, Woodward came out with a audio of Donald Trump talking about the virus in February 7th of February, about
Right.
how serious it was.
Yes.
And then I have a video here calling it a hoax. I am calling it a hoax. But that was Curtis.
You asked a few minutes ago, what can be done, what can we do that would alleviate the fears and the panic? My mind goes to the percent of the population that says that they would not take a vaccine.
Right.
Something like 40% at least, according to the survey that was done.
Right.
According to that survey,
40%?
40%, wasn't no 10%.
Okay.
It's up there. And the point is, what do they know that the other 60% don't know? That's my question. And the question is answered in terms of information. Information. They got a hold of some information. They've been involved in an information stream that tells them to hold up on something, hold up on their children. Black people need to be in that same information stream
Right.
and share that information and not be called conspiracy thinkers. A lot of us don't pursue information, and a lot of us don't provide sources that they got information from. For example, Gary Knoll has been running a series of programs on his station, Progressive Radio Network in New York. And one of the guys that he's interviewed, his name is Mickey Willis. And he's done 2 documentaries, Plandemic 1, Plandemic 2, that have been wiped off YouTube. And what you find when you go for Plandemic, you're looking for Plandemic, you find the folks who have been put up to disparage what he's found. But you can find an interview with him on Gary Knoll's website from last week, Progressive Commentary Hour, and he talks about Gates. He talks about how some years ago he saw on YouTube actual film footage of Gates involved in Nairobi and in Kenya, involved in India. He even said He even said there are shots of Gates administering vaccines to
Native.
this. He's doing it. He said he's not even a doctor. He said, so he's going to do this pandemic. The bottom line is this: he's going to do this pandemic, and he's looking for the footage on YouTube, and he can't find it. But what he did was go to Kenya and go to India, and he got the actual facts there. What he learned is that the people have been bought off. The heads of the health ministries, the heads of various segments of the government, that's how they get this stuff come right in. That's how they get stuff to come right in on the people.
Well, Pfizer's big in India, and you see all the pharmaceutical stores here in Harlem are run by the Indians.
Also, that's Robert Kennedy mentioned that in his piece.
Yeah.
I hope he gets in today, because the pharmaceutical companies, prior to, I think, 1986, they could not advertise the way they do now on network television. You had Bufferin, you had Anacin, but not this other stuff that they have out here, Dristan, but none of the heavy stuff that they're pushing now. And with regard to I'm going to go back real quick just to insert this piece regarding the polio vaccine. It was after the polio vaccine that there was a sudden rise in childhood cancers. Now, children today are getting 70 or 80 vaccinations before they're 3 years old, and most people don't even know it.
Yeah,
And you had Danny Thomas in the late 50s, early 60s that put together St. Jude Hospital, all right, and the Shriners Hospitals. So we have to start making the connections as to what could possibly be causing it. There was no such thing as autism when we were growing up.
That is
Not at
right.
all. Didn't exist. But all of these vaccines, these companies are making billions of dollars. Gates, his father was a eugenicist. He worked with Margaret Sanger in setting up Planned. Bill Gates' father.
Bill Gates'
He worked with Margaret Sanger in setting up
Where did I hear that?
Planned Parenthood, which is a program to depopulate or to get rid of black people and people of color, going back into the 30s. All right? So it's not about women's rights. It's not about choice. This was their agenda from the very beginning. And people need to go back and research these people, their fathers, their grandfathers, and see the mindset that these people have. They are not benefactors to us in any way.
Can we get the second roll-in on Kennedy, or do we have Curtis on the Skype? How are we doing? Or roller
Did you ever?
The first case of novel coronavirus was reported in Wuhan, China in December 2019. Early cases were believed to be linked to a live animal market in Wuhan and have since been spreading from person to person. Shortly after, cases of the virus began to appear outside of China, and on January 20th, 2020, the first case of novel coronavirus was reported in the United States. On January 30th, the World Health Organization declared the outbreak a public health emergency of international concern.
More cases should be expected in other parts of China and possibly other countries.
Coronaviruses are a large family of viruses, named for their shape, protruding spikes that look like a crown or a corona. SARS and MERS are part of the coronavirus family, as well as viruses that cause the common cold. The 2019 novel coronavirus was officially named COVID-19 on February 11th by the World Health Organization. Suspected community spread was first reported in the United States on February 26th, with no known links to people who've traveled to Wuhan, China. WHO said on February 27th that COVID-19 has pandemic potential.
This virus does not respect borders.
COVID-19 can cause flu-like symptoms that range from mild to severe, including cough, fever, and shortness of breath. Since the infection can include symptoms similar to pneumonia, influenza, and the common cold, only a diagnostic test can confirm whether or not an individual is positive for the virus. Thousands of people have died around the world. The first deaths in the United States occurred on February 26th. There are trials underway for treatments, but vaccines are still in the development phase and likely more than a year away. CDC officials say that Americans should prepare for major disruptions to their daily routines. Recommendations to reduce the risk of infection include regular hand washing, covering mouth and nose when coughing and sneezing, avoiding close contact with anyone showing signs of respiratory illness such as coughing and sneezing, avoiding touching your face, disinfecting frequently touched objects and surfaces, using an alcohol-based hand sanitizer if soap and water aren't available. If you're sick, stay home. If you're experiencing severe symptoms or are worried that you've contracted the virus, call your doctor before going in.
And there you have the very beginnings of COVID. Now, it seems to have reduced a lot of problems here in New York. We're down to 1%. And at one time, I think we're up to 19.
It was in the double digits.
When at one time, we had 800 people dying per day.
800, yeah. More than 800
one
a day.
time?
Yeah.
And they were yelling for 25,000 ventilators, and only 20% of the people on ventilators survived. Well, we have some miracle stories about that, but most of the percentage of... I'm sorry we can't get Curtis Cross on Skype. I was hoping we'd get him on the phone at least.
You know, they were talking, there was a lady on the news reporting from New Delhi, India, and the virus has flared up in India in 4 major provinces, including New Delhi. And it's very interesting because they just opened a tunnel.
Curtis.
Yeah, I'm here.
Are you on the phone?
I'm on the phone.
Oh, okay, all right. We just ran. I was about to run the Kennedy. Do you have the show on?
No, what's the address?
www.mnn.org, Channel 1.
MNN.org. Channel spelled out, C-A-N-N-L.
.org, O-R-G.
www.mnn.org.
Channel 1.
1.
Channel
1.
Okay, O-N-E. Okay, I'm going to do that right now.
And once you get it, we're going to run Kennedy. Just tell us when you have it.
Okay, give me 2 seconds.
But go ahead,
Yeah.
gentlemen.
So they built a tunnel, or they've dug a tunnel through the Himalayas from China into India. And that tunnel just opened up, I think, in May. Trains and traffic, I understand. And now, with the movement, the virus has flared up in India. And China and India have never been good partners and friends. It's going to be interesting to see how this works. You know, there's just so much beyond wearing the mask and everything that we're doing to stay safe. They did not talk about Professor Leiber in Harvard University, who struck a deal to supply the Chinese with COVID virus over a year and a half ago. They gave him money. He built a lab in Wuhan. He was arrested in January of this year by the FBI. He's under indictment. He's in federal court. And they say he was preparing to pass the virus off to some Chinese people, one of which was allegedly a student, but she is truly a lieutenant in the Chinese army. She was sitting in Harvard University interacting with the professor. They're not talking about this. They're not talking about the fact that he is funded by the National Institute of Health, the Department of Defense. He works with Bill Gates. They're not talking about this. And people are totally oblivious to what the truth is. And did you listen to the piece when Kennedy was talking? Was it Kennedy or a piece I was listening to with Dr. Gupta?
Gupta.
Curtis, can you hear all this?
That was the.
I'm watching it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm here.
All right.
With Dr. Gupta, the gentleman who came forward to be the first guinea pig for the vaccine, for the COVID vaccine. He was in studio with Sanjay Gupta, and he explained how he got violently sick, I think a day after he took the injection. Fortunately, he was with his girlfriend. She called the research center. They said, get him to the hospital, call 911. This is a guy that has never been sick in his life. Never. The best physical specimen you could find, they said they were taking like superheroes for the experimentation.
All right.
So, but that's not even realistic because the average person has been sick. So you don't want to take a totally sterile person. You have a lot of variables to deal with there. But in speaking to Sanjay, Sanjay said to him, well, let's not talk about that on air. All right?
So this is confusing.
So the whole structure between the pharmaceutical companies that are advertising and paying to keep all of the news media, whether it's Fox, NBC, ABC, CBS, they're all being paid by the pharmaceutical companies. And they're not going to say anything that's contrary to the movement of the vaccines or any of the medications they're putting out.
Myself, after all this, I'm confused. I mean,
In terms
I'm
of-
confused. Well, I feel comfortable wearing the mask. I feel comfortable isolating myself. I benefit from the isolation. I come more into myself, but I'm able to handle it. I'm like yourself. I don't panic under stress. But people in different situations, like if you've just got a newborn baby or something, you're just starting out in life. This is a new venture for you. You've never been through any changes before. You're a young couple, just had a baby, and we have a couple of people in here. You know, you worry yourself to death. Or you got an elderly person in a nursing home. Oh my God, that's got to drive you crazy. So what Robert Kennedy Jr. talks about is more people dying from the stress than the COVID. And this is a psychological warfare of your own mind. And this is what lessons we have to push out to the public, to understand that just take your time and take it all in and absorb as much as you can, but you have to decide for yourself what's comfortable for you, what you feel that how you relate to God. That's what it really amounts to, how you talk to God. I mean, if you don't believe in God, then you really got a problem, I think. I mean, my personal opinion. But, well, somebody such as Trump knows about this virus. He knew about it. We've heard it this morning from Woodward. And we can see how this is planned genocide by Trump. All right? Now, there's no doubts about it. Now, we got November 3rd again. I'm pushing election time, and everybody, no matter what your thoughts are about what we should do and so forth and so on, I think the main focus should be, what do we do about it? What are the solutions? We've presented the problems. But before that, Curtis, I'm going to run Kennedy for a minute, and then we'll come back. All right? So run.
Okay, no problem.
All right? So run Kennedy, it's labeled Kennedy. It's 2. I think you ran 1A. I think it's 2. All right?
The way it's going to flow is I'm going to ask you a few questions, and then after that, I'm just going to turn it over to the panel to ask their questions, and we'll see what happens. First question is, how dangerous, can you give us an idea of how dangerous you would say COVID-19 really is? Because there's a lot of conflicting reports, from saying it's the worst thing that's ever happened to the human race to it's no worse than a bad flu season, or even less than that. And so if you were to compare it to a flu season and whatever markers you would like to use, can you give us an idea just how serious COVID-19 really is?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know any more than anybody else does. I read the studies that are coming out. I've read the Stanford reports that came out this week, and then there's another very persuasive report out of England that look at the WHO data, and they're essentially saying that that we probably have a case fatality rate of 0.2 I mean, there's some reports that say 1.16, which is very low. It's lower than a seasonal flu. 0.2, which is something like a seasonal flu, to 0.3. Originally, they were, Neil Ferguson, who is a Gates epidemiologist who has a very notorious reputation for overestimating pandemic case fatality rates, was estimating that we had a case fatality rate that could have been 3 out of every 100 people. So that's more than 10 times what now the best reports are suggesting. And that we would lose 2.2 million people in the United States. And I think they were going to lose 250,000 in England. And those reports clearly were exaggerated. I think it's clear that the pandemic is real, that there are people dying from it who should not be dying. But to me, the real question is, what should our response be? And what are the countermeasures to control the pandemic? And that is where I'm most frustrated, because I think it's clear that the quarantine, which is the countermeasure that we've chosen, the strategy that everybody has kind of bought into, clearly appears to be killing a lot more people than COVID. So the British Health Service last week released a report that looked at deaths over the previous 5 weeks in nursing homes, which are about 80% of the deaths. They call them elderly care facilities in England. And they had 30,000 excess deaths. In other words, deaths that normally would not have happened this time of the year. And 10,000 of those were from COVID. 20,000 were deaths from isolation. The quarantine killed twice the number of people as COVID killed, because those were seniors who were not getting to hospitals. They couldn't get checkups for hypertension, for diabetes, for cancer, for kidney failure, et cetera. And that's what ended up killing them, the lack of access to doctors or to other kinds of care. I think the worst fatalities are going to come from unemployment. We studied in our country, we devoted a lot of energy to studying the social effects of unemployment back in the early 80s, when a lot of these big corporations were downsizing. And there's a very, very strong report that has been cited in hundreds of publications since. I think it's called Bamberg, but they actually made it part of a book. And that report suggests that for every additional 1 point in unemployment, there will be 37,000 excess deaths. A lot of those deaths, about 9,000 of those 37,000 will come from heart attacks. About 900 will come from suicides. And so if you multiply that times 30, because we're supposed to, the best projections now, we're going to have a 35% unemployment rate, up from 3.2%. That means that just from unemployment, we're going to kill about 1.1 million people compared to maybe 100,000 or 150,000 from COVID. 5 to 10 times the number will be killed through unemployment. Here in California, one of the big hospital chief supervisors said recently, told ABC News, that they are seeing 12 times the number of suicides because people die from despair as well. Alcohol sales are up 600%. Suicide rates in the last 12 months in California, according to this doctor, we had in 1 month, we had an entire year of suicides. There's a report from South Africa that says that the quarantine will kill 29 times the number of people who were killed by COVID.
Curtis, how I know I don't think we'll ever get up to 35% unemployment. So that's bogus.
We hit 30.
35% unemployment.
We hit 30.
Did we hit 30?
We did hit 30.
I didn't hear 30. I never heard 30. Whoa, I thought it got to 20 maybe. What's it now? They're saying 10?
Well, the numbers
Well,
they're
anyway,
giving.
the whole point is that the stress kills. Stress kills.
Right.
Now, what do we do about it? What sort of suggestions, Curtis, are we going to give the next president? There's one for you. What should we be telling the next president? No matter who it is. We know we're not going to get anywhere with Trump.
Well, we're skipping over a lot of things that I think people need to know about the nature of this problem with COVID and some of the exaggerations that Kenny was starting to outline. How the fear and the projections of how many people were going to die is way blown out of proportion. So I think that it's important to try and alleviate some of the fear that people have because a lot of people are dying not from COVID, from other reasons. Most people who are dying are elderly people who are average age of like 78 years old, who already had other conditions such as cancer, pneumonia, diabetes, as they were terminal in many cases. So they lump those types of cases along with COVID, and that's why we got this level of fear and society. When in fact, the Center for Disease Control just announced around their website that their original numbers on who have died of COVID is actually 6% of what they originally said. So instead of like the 160-some thousand deaths that they have been telling people, they're now saying it's close to 9,000. That's a huge difference. Now, every life is sacred, but 9,000, that's not enough just by shutting down the economy in the U.S., forcing people to lock themselves in their homes, and all the other drastic measures, not allowing people to see their doctors, and people dying because they can't get the medical care that they need. So I hope to relieve some of the fear that people have. And to give a bit of a comparison, the 9,000 deaths they're talking about, now compare that to the annual number of deaths from cigarettes. According to the Center for Disease Control, about 500,000 people die in America alone every year from cigarettes.
With your Curtis, one thing.
Yeah.
With your statistics, I mean, I can't even follow you. All right? You're muffled on the phone. No, but the point is, we have to get down to the person that's paranoid, doesn't understand what's going on, doesn't watch the news, not researching all this stuff for the last 30 years, and know that the rich people are overrunning us like crazy. Maybe even Trump supporters. I mean, they don't know the lies that are being told to them. Well, what do we do about the common folk who don't know anything about it? How do we make them secure in taking a vaccine?
I'm not taking a vaccine.
Or not? Now, what should we tell the next president? Should they be mandatory to take a vaccine? Or should people have information about the vaccine before they're allowed to take it? It should be their choice.
Okay, I'll say that I agree, and that's one of the things I recommend whoever becomes president. Informed choice. There should not be any mandatory vaccine.
Okay.
Every adult should be able to make decisions for their child and themselves, especially when we're talking about part of what I consider the most dangerous vaccine that's ever developed, the COVID vaccine. I think this vaccine killed more people than the other vaccines in history. So the first thing that a president is supposed to do is fight for informed choice for parents, for themselves and for their children. Another thing that many persons do is end the liability-free law that was passed in 1986 for pharmaceutical companies with respect to vaccines.
Say that again. Say that again.
Okay, right now, no one sues the drug company for their vaccine.
Nobody can sue a drug company if something happens to them?
For a vaccine.
There was a law passed in 1986, Childhood Vaccination Injury Act, which was based on the pressures that the drug company put on Congress. They got a law passed saying that if your child is crippled for life, or if your child dies, you cannot sue the pharmaceutical industry. You can't sue the drug companies that made the vaccine. That's the law.
Oh, so, all right. I got one item right there. Now, you're saying that if Biden is made president, I should I should write a suggestion that make sure that we take care of this law. And this is the first thing that we should change.
Well, you speak to your congressman, your senator, congressman, your senator.
All right, now that should be the main topic of our conversation. Next time we can get you on Skype and make it clear.
Right.
Now, I want to know what we can do, since your vast knowledge of this over the last 30 years, what do we do with a new president who's going to listen to us? What do we present to him? This is the way we solve it. Okay.
We combine our efforts and impress upon the next president these are some of the things that need to be done.
Okay.
I mean, we have lots of different vaccine groups. We have lots of different African American groups. We need to combine our resources and communicate with the president the need to end that law.
Okay.
Any drug company that makes the vaccine should take responsibility for what happens to the people who take it.
But that should be automatic. But that should be automatic.
It should be. You're right.
That should be automatic. I mean, that's
not how.
Well, people don't know this.
The motivating factor is money for these people.
Okay.
It's not about saving lives. It's about how much money can they
make. Well, I want to talk about what we do to protect ourselves against it.
But when Gerald Ford, he was talking about 1986, Gerald Ford was the president at the time, and there was an outbreak of a flu.
76.
And they rushed to get a flu vaccine to get it out. Well, they got it out, and it wrecked a lot of people.
Well, that's what's happening now.
Yeah.
That's what's happening now.
You know, my personal opinion about vaccines is different from somebody else's.
Right.
You know, I remember growing up, I never had the measles. I never had a measles shot. All the kids in my class had the white kids had measles. We didn't get it. They couldn't understand, well, how come you don't get it? We don't get it. And I would take the homework to their houses,
and
I never got the measles, and I never got a measles shot, and my sons never had the measles. They never had a measles shot. It is more than just, we cannot take a blanket approach medically. If you read Medical Apartheid by Harriet Washington, and I think she lives here in the Bronx, and how the medical profession is run, and when they do research, how they do research, it's relative to the European model. We are not the same internally or externally. If you're taking radiation therapy, if I'm taking radiation therapy, I can't take the same rads of radiation that you take, and you can't take the same that a white person takes because of the melanin in your skin.
Or body weight.
And if you don't have a doctor that is cognizant of the fact that highly melanated people retain more radiation, they will kill you. So you can't put out a vaccine that says, oh, this is everybody. It can't work. It can't work for everybody.
Well, we see what's happening right now. So what do we do about what's happening right now, Curtis?
Well, I mean, there's a growing informed choice movement across the country and around the world on the vaccine issue. And that group is also doing discussions with the anti-lockout, anti-masking group around the world. There are demonstrations in Europe, Germany, other places in the millions. So this is a movement that's growing full of behind on this vital information. But what I'm afraid of is they're gonna, when the vaccine comes out, black folks are gonna be lined up around the block to get it, and then a lot of people are gonna die from the COVID vaccine. As I said, I won't go into details now, but in my assessment, this is gonna be the most dangerous vaccine ever. And they're talking about giving it to 7 million people. And Bill Gates and Liz Gates are on television and actually saying they want to start giving this vaccine to black people.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't believe they want to give it to us. And this is like all the big decades of medical service that's been done on African people, from Tuskegee to the measles vaccine for autism and babies, to the vaccine that caused the willow fever in black girls. They got the nerve to come out and say they want to give this vaccine to black folks because they love it so much. I say, hell no. Mr. Gates, why don't you give that vaccine in your own neighborhood first? Let's see what happens to them. Why don't you start off with your own family? And let's watch what happens to your family over the next 20 years.
I heard the Surgeon General this morning on the, he made a statement in front of from the Senate that if it's approved, him and his family be the first one in line to take the vaccine.
That's good.
The Surgeon General made that statement this morning.
He should take it.
All right? So,
But you don't know if what he's taking is what you're going to get.
We can count on anything coming out that this Surgeon General approves of. His family will be the first people to die. All right?
Well, Surgeon General, he's also the one that actually got on TV and told people that ordinary cloth masks to make it home going to protect you from a virus. That is laughable.
I didn't understand.
Yeah, the connection is bad. Could you say that again?
I didn't say that. I didn't understand.
This Attorney General got on YouTube and told people how they could make this face mask against a virus. Now, he knows that is ludicrous. It will not protect you from a virus. And if you go back and look at his earlier statement, he actually said a face mask will not protect you from a virus. So I can't put anything in. How will we know that the vaccine that they give him is going to be the same thing they're going to give us?
Right. Did you hear about the nanodes they want to put?
Yeah, I know.
See, that's another thing. People don't know about the nanodes that they want to put into the vaccine. Now, people don't know what nanodes are. Then they're not.
Is that the
They're
chip?
not living organisms.
Oh, nano.
Right.
I'm confused.
No, this is why we got to start digging and researching, because they want to put nanodes in the vaccine. The nano attaches itself to your cellular structure.
Mm-hmm.
And these nanodes can do various things, even down to tracking a human being.
Okay.
So
this stuff is going to actually insert itself into your cell.
Oh, I remember that. That was in the. Was that in the piece? Was that in the piece?
No, it's not in the piece.
It's with tiny robots.
Yeah.
And this has never been done before in a vaccine. This is extremely experimental. So to give people back a little kind of background, they've been trying to develop a coronavirus vaccine for over 30 years. And I know you watched the video with the kid, he talked in details about it. Every time they tried to develop this type of a vaccine, the animals they tried to go on the ferrets, they all died. Right. And when they gave it to people, a lot of people got sick and many people died. And now they want to come back to the same type of vaccine, but this time they don't want to give it to animals because they know if the animals die, everybody's going to not to take it. And they want to rush to market. That's the formula for death. No animal tested, rush to market, and it's an entirely experimental vaccine that can contain these nanoparticles, RNA. It's highly experimental. And they want to give it to 7 billion people, and they want to sell it and give it to black folks. We're the ones that need to be protesting. Right now, there's white organizations all across the country who are protesting, demonstrating, writing letters, organizing. We have nothing. So you can't fool us to join these groups or forming their own. This is the most serious event, I think, ever, and African Americans have been in this country and for our country. We got all kinds of states now showing all kinds of black children dying now because the experimental vaccines don't be given. And we got a man, Bill Gates, who gets on TV and says he wants to use vaccines to reduce world population.
Right.
Get it right on TED Talk. And now we're going to be lining up to get a vaccine. This kind of guy, that's scary. Very, very scary.
All right, Curtis. You know what we're going to do? We're going to have to get you in the studio so I can understand what you're saying. Because this is very muffled, and I know you're animated by what you're saying, and I understand most of it. I'm just speaking for my audience. I'm sure they're confused. So, you know, I mean, we're all enthusiastic about this, and it means our lives and our future and our children and grandchildren. All the young folks out here are looking for a life. But I think
what Curtis is, for me, what Curtis is demonstrating is a passion.
Right, exactly.
He has a passion which comes from a foundation of researching this stuff and seeing the scams that have been run on people in general and his own people in particular. And it comes at a time, I mean, his passion and Minister Farrakhan's passion, which was July 4th presentation, the front page of the final call, the new final call is don't take their vaccines.
Okay.
That's the boldest statement being made by any black man.
Show the front cover.
Don't take their vaccine. And they're going to trot out a lot of black folks. They're going to give money to a lot of black folks to talk to this group, be on these shows, that show, to nullify. You didn't even see the Surgeon General talk about vaccines until today. Everything is related. Brother Wayne and I, we would say everything is related. So Minister Farrakhan, front page on the final call, the Surgeon General is giving a testimony in front of the Senate.
Well, to me, this is just a setup by Trump, and it's showing you how much he hates black people. Okay?
Yeah, you
That's
can go
my
online.
breakdown. And I'm going to go to a commercial and play the last roll in. It says Obama. Here comes a political commercial.
I got staples in my back, staples in my
Speaking from a hospital bed, Jacob Blake described his constant agony.
24 hours, every 24 hours, it's pain, it's nothing but pain. It hurts to breathe, it hurts to sleep, it hurts to move from side to side, it hurts to eat.
Blake was shot in the back by a Kenosha, Wisconsin policeman in August.
Hi.
Hey.
Good morning. Hi.
What I remember from the campaign trail is even with a supportive family, it can still be grueling. You got any tricks of the trade?
I work out every morning, regardless of how much sleep I've had. It's just the best way to start the day. For months, I couldn't find weights to order weights. They were sold out, so I had these liter water bottles that I filled, of course, with water and used them as hand weights.
That's resourceful. There were times where I was like in a little Iowa town, and that the only treadmill was in the back of a beauty salon, you know, and I'd be walking by, and women be looking, why is this guy there? Do you have like a playlist that you're working while
I've got my playlist. You know, I love some Mary J. Blige. And also, you know what I really also, as a break in the day, I love is to FaceTime with the kids in my life and get a sense of the world through their eyes, you know, and talk to them. How are you feeling about things? What is your day like?
The other thing that I think is, you know, for me was always great was those moments, and you never knew when they'd come, when you just have a conversation with, maybe it's a security guard in a building, or maybe it's some young kid who runs up and said they ran for, student council, and
That's right.
do you have any advice? Right? Just those small interactions,
Right.
somebody one-on-one, right?
That's right, and those conversations, because also people of our country they really are full of hope, right? There's a lot that gives them a reason to be concerned about the future, but there's also a lot that folks just carry in their hearts and their spirit that is truly born out of optimism. And so when you have those conversations and people share with you their hardships, but also they're there because they also believe that things are possible, that all things are possible. And I agree with you, those interactions, those one-on-one interactions really do inspire and help you to keep it real.
Right.
And obviously that is critical if we are to lead effectively.
Right.
So tell me about Joe and your relationship with Joe, and what do I need to know? Like, what's the thing about the ice cream? He loves ice cream. Tell me about that.
Well, listen, ice cream is big. Pasta with red sauce, he can go deep on that. He really does like those aviator glasses. He knows he looks good in them. But look, the main thing to know about Joe is that Joe has never lost his sense of why we do this. And we do it because of, for him, memories of his family back in Scranton, and then the people of Delaware that he represented, the folks on the Amtrak train he met each and every day. He's constantly aware that is why we do this, and that everything that comes up, his focus is going to be how's that going to help those people who sent him there. Now,
Happy ending. This is our future, and you can see and count on being able to talk to Obama. It's his third term, with Joe Biden coming back, right? So we're going to have Kamala and Joe Biden in the White House, and we'll be able to talk sense to these two, don't you think? Well, power to the people. We only got 15 seconds. Well, we'll get you on. If you have to, we have to come in the studio, Curtis. All right? God bless. Power to the people. The God in me loves the God in you. Stay tuned for more of the Gilchrist Experience. And I think we got another minute for the Bronx.
On nanotechnology, there is a interview on the internet, injection fraud. Injection fraud.
Injection fraud.
Injection fraud.
Okay.
And that's for folks who want to do some research on this nanotechnology as it relates to the vaccine.
Okay.
And what it is that nanos do, how they attach to human cells, and they are not organic materials.
Okay.
As I understand. It's something we really need to take a look at. And also you can look up vaccines and adverse conditions. People can start reading, going online and looking up what these vaccines have done to people across the board prior to COVID.
All right. As you see, we've had technical difficulties, and maybe we'll come back to you next week with a live Curtis Koss, giving us more details on what we should do to protect ourselves, especially black people, since we're on the onslaught of Donald Trump. Power to the people. Right?
Right.
Was that a good one?